Hi everybody, I'm Phil, this is Alex, and we are Phil and Alex 2. And today we're actually going to talk about how we met. And most importantly, why are you still with me? Because guys, here's the thing, and this is like the dream of all dreams, to marry so far out of your league that you like realize that like they're like 10 leagues ahead of you. But that's what's happened here. And so here we're actually going to have Alex just kind of tell some of the story of how we met.
We actually met in college, so we were both at school early for different reasons.
And this was back in 2006, by the way.
Yeah, so we graduated high school. We actually both went straight into a 4-year university. I was actually there early. I had been a competitive dance.
A dancer.
I had been on.
She was on the cheer squad.
I had been on a competitive dance team all through high school, and I didn't really want to give up the competition yet. And so I ended up joining the cheer team, which was very different than dance.
And I like didn't even like have this idea of dating a cheerleader. And when I knew her, like I didn't even notice that she was even on the cheer team.
Yeah.
But that's what she was doing, and that's what brought her there early that summer.
I was there early. And then Philip, why were you there early?
Okay, I'm gonna be honest, you guys. Alex, maybe just email.
Yeah.
So I connected with my roommate about July of that year, about a month before we ended up going into college. And John and I said, hey, let's go early and see if we can find any single ladies. So I was actually fresh off of a breakup from high school. And it was a tough breakup, but at the same time, it was like, okay, so I have this freedom and I'm going to college and I'm gonna go there early and I'm just gonna like pave my way. So we were the first ones, John and I, to move into our hall there at the university. Yeah. And Alex was already there at the university just doing the cheer stuff.
Yeah.
And so we began to connect. And it wasn't really like, it was like, everybody meet everybody. And we didn't really like love at first sight or anything.
I know, he's like, connect. It was like, you were there and I only knew you through pretty much someone else that was on the cheer team that they ended up actually dating later that year. So our first year of college was pretty much kind of, hi, I kind of met you in passing.
Right, and so there was probably somewhere around like 1,000 undergrad students that was just freshmen alone. Mm-hmm. And so like it wasn't this like massive state university, and so kind of everybody like would see each other.
Yeah.
And so it was one of those things that like Alex recalls constantly telling me like, you were the loud one on campus.
Oh my gosh. So it was literally like you would hear him coming and it was like if you had not had coffee yet, like you either better go back to your dorm or like perk up some energy because the loud outgoing person is coming your way.
This guy's here. This guy showed up.
Oh my gosh, so funny. But we did not date that first year. I was still in an off and on relationship with my high school boyfriend at the time, and so I was unavailable.
She was unavailable, and so because she was busy and tied up with that guy, and I was just kind of going around just to flirt with whoever could breathe.
Let's be honest,
but
he was dating that first year of college.
So we would.
So we actually went to the quad area and it was after class and I was hanging out at the tables because I wanted to hang out with this other guy that I just had class with.
Who was a friend of mine. But it's cool, we looked sort of similar.
I know, I'm like, does he even know? Thanks, Casey.
And I was like, oh my gosh, like, I know you, like, we should hang out sometime.
This was the beginning of sophomore year, so yeah, he pretty much asked if you wanted to pretty much have a coffee date.
Yeah.
And so I went back and I told my roommates, you know, Phil wants to have coffee or lunch or dinner, whatever it was.
And they're like, is he the loud one?
And no, they were saying, he's friends with everybody, Alex. Don't even think twice about it. It's nothing. It's just like friends, like hanging out. Yeah. I said, oh, okay. So we ended up having our first date in the middle, same kind of area, the quad area. Yeah. And we started our conversation just thinking it was going to be a willy-nilly, like, quick little thing. Yeah. And 4 hours later, the sun was going down. And we were like, oh, wow.
And actually,
I really like talking to you.
Yeah, why wouldn't she want to talk to me? You know? But, you know, the funny thing about that whole thing was Alex had just kind of had this, like, voice in her head and in her heart that said, like, don't really open up, like, so much about your story to this guy. Yeah. And I was like, okay, I'm just going to tell her who I am. So as we were sitting there just in the quad talking, it ended up being about 4 hours. And the sun actually went down by the time that we were done talking.
Yeah. So what was really funny about our first hangout is I am such an open book. I will tell anybody everything, and that's just who I am. That always was my way. And for some reason, there was something inside of me that was saying, Alex, you don't have to share every detail right this second. And so I think that kind of played into our dating because...
Totally, because it was a mystery for me. And here I was just opening up all of me and saying, like, this is my story, this is where I'm from, like all this stuff. And she was very reserved. And I think that reserved was actually a mystery to me. And I was very intrigued by it. Totally.
So after we had our first date, kind of, it wasn't really a first date. It was our first hangout.
But I still call it our first date.
We left and we went home for Thanksgiving break.
Yeah.
And I was texting him on the way home and he didn't really respond. And so I thought, okay, well, maybe it's not really much. Maybe it's not really anything, even though
I was at a movie and I couldn't text back.
But you didn't text me that whole week.
Oh.
I went home and I hung out with my high school boyfriend that week.
And I was just like, there's this girl and it's awesome and I'm not going to rush anything.
And he assumed that I was all on board.
And she was like, oh, this is great. I totally like this guy. I'm not going to rush either, but I'm going to make out with my ex-boyfriend back at home.
Oh,
and so I later found that out. But all ended up being good. We got back from Christmas break and we were like, let's continue hanging out. Like, I think this is really fun.
So when we got back from Thanksgiving break, we did things hit off again, and we were texting and hanging out, and all of a sudden we started hanging out a little bit more. And then he took me out on our first official date.
Which was?
I'm obsessed with Christmas lights. Obsessed. And so there was like a street that goes like all out. Like, I mean, Christmas Vacation, top to bottom, every single house on the street.
Extravagant.
It's insane. And so Philip actually picked me up and he said, where do you want to go to eat? He had 3 cards in the shape of a Christmas tree set on the dashboard, and he had me pick one. So I picked one, and on the back said where we were going. So we went to CPK, California Pizza Kitchen, for dinner, and then he took me to look at Christmas lights.
And that whole time, it was like the first time we held our hand, the first time we really looked in each other's eyes and was like, wow, like there's something beyond just the chemistry of being a friend. Mm-hmm. And it really blossomed into something that Alex and I, from day one, from that first like pseudo non-date date, we've just always been able to talk to each other and always been able to open up and be honest with one another. And so our communication as friends that started early turned into romance. And it became romance because I was always taught like chivalry was something that like is so important. Yes. Like, treat a woman the way that she's supposed to be treated, which is loving, and it's not forceful, and it's gentle, and it's caring. And it says, you know what, I might be uncomfortable with like creating these like, like fluffy little date things and like being sweet and all that. Like, that might not be my first inclination, but
it was so sweet.
For them, like, that's what they long for. And so I began to put her needs first.
Yeah. What really hit me most is how sweet he was, how chivalrous he was. And what really stole my heart was his passion for Jesus. And so we really were able to connect, and pretty much, you guys, the rest is history. We started hanging out more. We became officially boyfriend and girlfriend. And that leads to our engagement story.
Which is an awesome story, you guys. So much that it deserves another video. So what we're going to do is we're going to cut this video now.
I hope you guys enjoyed hearing our how we met story, and we will see you guys in our next video. Bye. Guys.